can you really go off-road with a 4x4 Sprinter van? Well, yes you can.
Lovely! Yay! Woohoo!
So what do I mean by off-road? Everyone has a different idea of what off-road is. Some people think that when you leave the bitumen and you drive down a corrugated gravel road, they think that's off-road. Some people think the Gibb River Road is off-road. The Sprinter can easily do that. Birdsville Track, I don't think either of those places are off-road. You could do them in a two-wheel drive car, no problem. In fact, I did that way back in 1982. Others think that deep river crossings, Gunshot Creek, the Sprinter can't do that. Crazy mountain climbs, rolling your car over, that's off-road. That's not what I'm talking about either. I'm talking about in between that. Being able to get to places that are off the beaten track, cross a desert, drive up a beach, drive over a sandhill, drive up a washed away track, creek crossings, over a few boulders and rock steps. Basically, getting to the places you want to go, being adventurous. The Sprinter can do that. Is it all wonderful? No, it's not. You need to consider a few things. The first being that this is a delivery van made to have a wide, flat cargo space, which is great for making it a camper, but not so good for having the optimum off-road suspension system. These vans have leaf rear end with fairly compromised shock absorber layout. The upper mounts are not strong enough for off-road. The shock absorbers front and rear really aren't up to the task. So what are the limitations with the Sprinter? Well, firstly, the suspension travel. I consider that to be its biggest shortcoming. It's got a very small amount of wheel travel. The front suspension is actually a transverse leaf with struts. It's really poor as far as articulation, and the rear is limited because of the way the flat floor, I think, and the length of the springs and all that sort of stuff, because originally these are a vehicle made for carrying load and a big cargo space. So that's your first problem. lack of suspension travel. The second biggest limitation to me is the pure size of the van. It's big. Ours is a mid-wheelbase, so it's not as big as some, but it's big. You know, to fit down a track, you need to be always aware of the trees above you and, you know, to the side of you if you rock and roll. What do you need to consider when you're taking one of these things off-road? Well, firstly, you need to consider your tyre pressures. It's critical. I can't tell you how important tyre pressures are in these vans. You know, you're up and down like a yo-yo to suit the conditions, whether that be a corrugated road, sandhills, beaches, rocks, you name it. Whatever you're doing, you find the right tyre pressure and you change it. Secondly, the lack of suspension travel means that your line choice is critical. You cannot attack bumps, holes, rocks quickly. You cannot, you know, you'll just smash the thing to pieces. The other thing to consider along that lines is your low range is not that low. So you've got a relatively high gear, but you're trying to keep the speed down and yet keep the turbo on boost to give you the power, because, you know, at 3.9 tonnes and a 4-cylinder engine, you know, it's compromised and you've got to work around that. But as a comfortable way to travel and see this country, it's fantastic. And it will get us to where we want to go. What I particularly like about this vehicle is I don't have any flapping canvas. No wet, dewy canvas in the morning, just no canvas. No canvas and no towing. What more could you ask for? Perfect, in my mind. Proper bed, flushing toilet, no gas, just induction cooking and an oven. You know, life's easy. They do take a certain driving style. You need to go steady, but you need to keep it on boost. You need to be, I would call persistent, would be how I would describe it. You need to make it clear to the van's computer actually, that you want to go through this obstacle, and the traction system needs to get its act into gear and work for you. We have a winch. We've never needed to use it, but it gives us a little bit of extra comfort going into some places that we consider, you know, we might be pushing the limits a bit. Do you need a diff lock? No, you don't. There's plenty of videos up there telling you that you do. We've gone everywhere we've gone without a diff lock. There's probably the odd occasion that it would have been handy. This track here was quite null and hold, and it's probably the first time that I really thought a diff lock would help me a lot. As it was, I still made it through this obstacle. So did I need a diff lock? No, I didn't. When we bought this van, I couldn't find anything on the internet that really would show me whether or not it was capable of going to the places we wanted to go. You know, general sort of thing you saw was someone driving around in a quarry or a gravel road or something like that, that realistically you could drive a Falcon on, and saying they were doing off-road testing. We now have done quite a bit of off-road testing, and I can confidently say that these vans are pretty good. But what about the man on YouTube that tells everyone that the Sprinter can't go off-road? Well, seeing's believing, really, isn't it? We're not special, and we can go where we want to go. But I'm talking about our Sprinter. Our Sprinter at 3.9 tonnes is on the lighter end of a motorhome type arrangement. Some sprinters, I think, can be up to 5.5 tonnes. They're not going to be capable to do the same things as Fugly can do. They've got dual wheels and they're just heavy. I'm going to roll a fair bit of film now, just to show you some of the places that we've been able to take Fugly in the last year or so. And when you're looking at this, make sure to think that that's a vehicle that has a full kitchen, a proper bed, a toilet, shower, all of that sort of thing that normally you would only get by carrying a caravan around behind you. We've got all of that in that vehicle, and to me, that makes this such a versatile machine.
Sprinter van off-road. It certainly is possible and doable with a degree of caution, but look, if it's not for you...
No, there's an element of risk in pushing a big vehicle down some of these tracks. But when you get to the end, you can camp very comfortably behind your fly screens and out of the flies and all that sort of thing.
Certainly doable. This is the visitor's book to the centre.
This track I've seen referred to as a mini Simpson desert.
Don't let people tell you they can't go off-road, because they certainly can.
But if you're new to the channel, we've got plenty of other places to see.
Like, comment, subscribe, I think is the jargon.
I always said that I would never...
Work with children and amateurs.
Yeah, that. But I've done that. I always said that I would never verbally come on here and ask people to subscribe. But I'm going to. Please subscribe, click the button, comment, do all that sort of stuff. Like, up until this point, I've never made our channel a pay channel. YouTube put ads in anyway, and they're getting paid for it, so I may as well get some. I'm pretty sure it's only a very small amount from all I've heard. But anyway, subscribe.